Labour Party after the drubbing in the by-election last week when the constituency went violently to the left. The Green Party, which doesn't want any curbs on immigration at all.
Absolutely. And the papers are reporting that there are 30 or 40 or so Labour MPs who are strongly against this move to take away permanent refugee status. But that number could easily grow as Labour MPs look at the polls and wonder what their constituents want. But I think it's really important, Andrew, to link these two stories. This incredible war that's going on now in the Middle East and the potential for a bigger, even bigger refugee crisis. Of course, the crisis in 2015 was caused by military intervention in the Middle East over the previous years. Could we see that again?
Well, I think the whole of the instability in the Middle East, I think, goes back to the Iraq War in 2003. For sure.
Exactly.
And that was the big... And remember when we foolishly went into Libya? Called Libya Now Basket Case, masses of Libyan migrants heading for Britain.
Syria, Afghanistan, the whole destabilisation is what caused that massive crisis. And we could easily see the same again. It's a little bit ironic how Trump and the MAGA movement are telling us that Europe is over because of mass migration, but it's at least in part because of what they've done in the Middle East. Anyway, such is life.
Exactly. Now, as everyone wants to know what you think, send your views, post your comments by visiting
gbnews.com/your say. But first, here's your 60-second news update with Sophia Hill.
Miriam, thank you. Very good morning. These are the latest headlines just after 9:30. The RAF base at Criterion, Cyprus, has been struck by a drone just hours after Sir Keir Starmer confirmed the UK would allow the United States to use British bases for strikes against Iranian missile sites. The incident comes amid escalating regional tensions as the government prepares contingency plans for the possible evacuation of more than 100,000 Britons from the Middle East. Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood has told GB News she would personally live next to a migrant camp if it was part of the solution. She insisted that there is no one silver bullet to fix what she's called a broken system, as today refugee status will become temporary, with all adult asylum claims reviewed every 30 months. Elsewhere, the first tariff-free shipment of British beef has arrived in the United States, marking a milestone in the UK-US economic prosperity deal. The agreement allows up to 13,000 tonnes of beef to be traded without tariffs each year, a deal worth up to £70 million annually for British farmers if fully used. The Metropolitan Police is missing nearly half of its officers' data from its elimination database, among with more than a fifth of fingerprints. These records are used to rule out contamination at crime scenes, but gaps in the system could also hamper efforts to identify wrongdoings within the force. And rail fares across England have been frozen for the first time in 3 decades in a move aimed at easing pressure on commuters. From this week, regulated fares, including season tickets and peak returns, will not rise, affecting more than 1 billion journeys a year. Those are the latest headlines for now. More on those stories at the top of the hour.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello, good morning and welcome. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Well, the Prime Minister appears to have changed his mind. Is it a U-turn? He's given the US permission to use UK bases to destroy Iranian missiles, which he says is specifically limited to defensive purposes.
Well, let's listen to the announcement he made last night. Is it another U-turn?
The only way to stop the threat is to destroy the missiles at source, in their storage depots or the launchers which are used to fire the missiles. The United States has requested permission to use British bases for that specific and limited defensive purpose. We have taken the decision to accept this request.
Well, the 2 British air bases he's talking about are Fairford in Gloucestershire and Diego Garcia in the Chagos Islands.
And this comes now after the RAF base in Cyprus, which we've had since 1960, has been hit by 2 drones. But the question we're saying is, should Britain be doing more? Or maybe you think we're already doing too much?
It's such a difficult question, isn't it, Andrew?
Yeah.
Because we have nowhere near the military capabilities that we did when we helped out with the last war in the Middle East. We're much depleted. But on the other hand, most people don't think that that war was successful. I mean, regime change in Iraq turned into chaos in the Middle East.
Yeah, and the question everybody's asking is, where does this conflict with Libya end? If there's an uprising and they overthrow the hateful clerics, the evil clerics, I get it. But if Iran, if the theocrats stay in charge, what does it achieve? And what if the country implodes and there's civil war?
Yeah, and at the base of this all, Trump wants to get rid of the Iranian nuclear capabilities. I think pretty much everybody in the free world would agree with this.
Yeah.
We cannot have
Yeah.
Iran having nuclear weapons. But this time, his goal is clearly regime change. The very first thing they did was to take out the Ayatollah and some of his top deputies. And to encourage the Iranian people to rise up. And you just think, where is that going to lead? Is there going to be some violent revolution, civil war that spreads to the rest of the Middle East? We've already seen other Arab countries now under attack from Iran, like Dubai. We're going to be speaking to some Brits there later.
Yeah, we are.
It is a very perilous situation.
Well, let's talk to somebody who will understand the legal implications of all of this. That's the former Attorney General, Sir Michael Ellis. Sir Michael, good morning to you.
Good morning, Andrew.
Are we being unkind in characterising what Starmer has said over the weekend as an apparent U-turn? Because I listened with mounting horror to the Defence Secretary, John Healey, in interviews over the weekend, incapable of saying whether or not Britain even supported the joint Israeli-American bombing raids on Iran.
Well, I'm afraid it's pathetic weeks from Keir Starmer. If it is a U-turn, they're sort of broken down in the middle of the road, blocking other traffic. Because what the United Kingdom should be doing is helping the United States and Israel are fighting for Western civilization and also fighting for the Persian people who've been subjugated and murdered by their theocratic regime for decades. We're seeing now British allies around the region and British territory in the region being attacked, both in Bahrain, where there's a naval base and British military personnel, and on the island of Cyprus, which since 1960 has been independent, but which has maintained British sovereign bases in the RAF base there in Akrotiri and Takalia. Appeasement doesn't work, Andrew, and we've seen vacillation, equivocation, hedging, indecision, paralysis, frankly, from the British side, when Saudi Arabia was prepared to say that they were supporting American action against the Iranian regime, but the United Kingdom wasn't, and they've been blaming international law. It's not international law that's to blame here. It's the United Kingdom's position, which, frankly, is refusing to support Allied interests and refusing to allow, even now, even with this partial U-turn, not allowing anything other than defensive action when missiles are presumably being fired towards British or Allied bases, rather than attempting to help remove the regime.
So, Michael, why do you think the US and Israel chose now to begin the war? Obviously, in an immediate sense, they picked that particular time because they knew that the Ayatollah was in a particular place where they could decapitate him. But why now? They weakened the nuclear program last year. They could have waited longer to do more negotiations. What do you think triggered the start of this war?
Well, Miriam, I think it's a couple of things. There is a lack of absolute certainty about how advanced uranium enrichment has been. There's clear certainty that it had been enriched to at least 60%, which is far greater than is needed for civilian use. That's part of the risk. There's an existential risk to world peace, a genocidal risk, because Iran has made it very clear that Israel should be wiped off the map. So as soon as they had a nuclear weapon, there's a real and present danger that they would use it against Israel, and that would spark what we all know it would spark. But also there's the movement internally, the uprising against the regime, where tens of thousands, in all likelihood, reports in the region say it could be over 40,000 civilians were killed by their own regime by using military-grade weapons against unarmed civilian protesters. So I think there's a combination of things. But if we look at this with a long arc of history, Andrew and Miriam, Iran has been a thorn in the side of the United States, Israel, and the West for nearly 50 years. Since Iranian hostages were taken under President Jimmy Carter in 1979 and held for over a year, 2 years, numerous bomb attacks by their proxies, including, for example, embassies in Tanzania, United States embassies in Tanzania and Kenya, repeated bomb attacks against American interests in the 1980s in Beirut, where hundreds of Marines were killed. There have been decades of hits against the United States, decades of provocations, and even, of course, on October the 7th in the attack against Israel, 12 Americans were taken hostage amongst the Israeli hostages, and 100 Americans were killed, or dozens certainly of Americans were killed in that attack, American citizens. So we've got to look at this in the context of not necessarily what's just happened in the last few weeks, but the fact that for 47 years, the Iranian regime has been using its proxies to terrorize the United States, Israel, and Western communities. Now it's subjugating its own people on a level never before seen, and that's saying something. And it's getting closer, it has been getting closer to developing a nuclear weapon, and there's a lack of certainty as to how far it had got to that. So I think Trump has clearly decided that, and Netanyahu have clearly decided that enough is enough and something has to be done about it. But I'm afraid the British position is embarrassingly weak, and appeasement does not work. History tells us that. It's no good simply sitting back and watching others fight your battles for you. After all, Director General of MI5 has openly said in recent months that Iran and its proxies have been planning attacks in the United Kingdom. So here we have a situation where difficult decisions have to be made, but it's wrong, in my view, to say that it's international law that prevents one from doing anything. International law isn't there to protect tyrants and dictators.
I wonder, Sir Michael, bearing in mind the by-election result last Thursday when the constituency there decisively rejected Labour, which came third, humiliating. The Green Party won. The Green Party's own defence document says if ever we're under attack, there'll be a legal response. So they are the ultimate appeasers. I wonder if it's a political constraint which has influenced the Prime Minister to do so little.
Well, Andrew, I'm sure it is. I think you've hit the nail on the head. Part of it is the Prime Minister's own ideology, I think, a left-wing ideology which infantilizes the United Kingdom to some ideological concept of a master international law, which, if you like, positions the people of this country as its servants. I see the law as the servant of the people, not its master. I don't think the United Kingdom government, as it's presently constituted, feels that way. It's partly that, it's partly ideology, but I think you've hit the nail on the head, Andrew. It's also partly demography, and it's a concern by the Labour government about votes. It's as simple as that. And the most anxious he seemed to be, the Prime Minister, when he first made his statements about the attack on Saturday morning, most anxious he was to indicate that he and the United Kingdom had not supported the United States. That was his top priority.
Very interesting. Sir Michael Ellis, thank you so much for your expert analysis, as always. It is extraordinary, isn't it, that this has become about law rather than whether it's right or wrong to go to war against Iran.
It is amazing. Now, still ahead, the Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood is scrapping permanent refugee status and exclusively tell GB News all about it.
And would you live next door to Cromer or next door to a migrant camp?
Well, look, I mean, I'm in a constituency that's had asylum hotels as well.
Happy, would you, with your children?
Look, I do understand, but look, we've got to put people somewhere.
And coming up next, the government is organising an emergency evacuation for Brits stranded in the Middle East. We'll be joined by one of them shortly. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Spells of rain around the Canary Islands, also southern parts of Spain, but elsewhere across Europe, plenty of dry, fine weather and some sunshine to go alongside that too. Now, some brisk northerly winds affecting the Canary Islands, parts of Madeira, also southern parts of Spain, as well as some rain. This could be heavy at times, possibly even bringing in some thunderstorms. But elsewhere across Europe and parts of the Mediterranean, lots of dry, fine weather and plenty of sunshine too. This should continue into next week away from Barcelona, where we are expecting some showers.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock, only on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Of course, they're not nuisance. We forget that when Jeremy King opened the Ivy and I opened Silly Fish, the phones didn't exist. So, you know, we've got to move with the times. If you don't want them in, it's very simple. I've just been to 3 pubs around here to connect to the internet to speak to you guys in Victoria, and they don't have internet. They don't have Wi-Fi. So, you know, if you don't want them in, then it's easy to tell them not to come. But there is a downside because they are quite influential. That's why they're called influencers. And some of them have got millions of followers. You want them in your restaurants. It's free advertising. I totally disagree, actually. I welcome influencers. I've just opened Aldo's Pizza in Bromley inside the Royal Bell Hotel, and we welcome, you know, without influencers, it's instant advertising, and it's, you know, the social media is what we have to embrace. I've got a 19 and a 17-year-old at home. If I said any different, they will probably never speak to me again.
Yeah. But what if it drives your other customers away, regular customers who might come in a lot? Usually these influencers only come in, do a couple of pictures, and they probably never to be seen again.
Well, you know, if that's the case, then you need a security guide to tell them not to come in. But it's, you know, it's far and few between. I don't know what the best thing to do is. I don't particularly mind. A lot of restaurateurs can't stand it.
GB News, the People's Channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel. Well, it is 10 to 10, and you're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Well, there could be up to 100,000 Brits trapped in the Middle East. They're registering with the Foreign Office to be evacuated as soon as possible.
Well, Etihad Airways have just announced that all flights to and from Abu Dhabi are suspended until 2 o'clock UAE time.
We're going to go to Dubai right now and speak to Sandra Roycroft-Davis, who is a very extraordinarily successful author. Sandra, morning to you. How are you?
Hi, Andrew. I'm very well, thank you.
Are you really? You're on holiday. You're on a business conference. What are you doing there? And are you stranded?
I'm stranded, but I'm launching my thriving Slim Pod business into the UAE, well, to Dubai, into this thriving country. And this is a bit of a little bump in the road, should we say.
You say a bump in the road, but I imagine it's more like shock for a lot of holiday makers who've gone to Dubai thinking that it's a very safe country. It's increasingly popular for Brits to holiday, but also to emigrate to. Are you picking up that sense of shock from other expats in the region?
It was a sense of shock for me, hugely, because I arrived on Saturday morning at 6 o'clock.
Oh, no.
And indeed. And my son already lives here, one of my sons. The other son and his girlfriend were staying in the Fairmont Hotel.
Oh.
And they were literally 3 minutes, having drinks 3 minutes away from where the bomb went off. And, well, not where the bomb went off, where the drone landed in the Fairmont Hotel. And it was just, very,
scary.
very tense.
I mean, the front page of the Daily Mail today is a picture of the Fairmont Hotel in Dubai ablaze. How worrying, Sandra?
I know. I mean, I was standing on my son's balcony, not the one at the Fairmont, but the other one, which is only 10 minutes walk away, and I saw the smoke, the flumes going up into the air, and I was very worried because I knew that was the area. But they were all then evacuated into the car park. They were all rushed into the underground car park where they spent the night. And then we got alerts, and it is very scary, very worrying, and but the thing I think the biggest problem at the moment is that Dubai is on the flight path. It's where the missiles are being intercepted, and so they're not really being targeted, I don't think. And we're hoping. It's just they're intercepting like 300 missiles a day overhead, and one got free. A drone got free. So it just is very, very, yes, it is worrying for everybody.
And Sandra, what is life like? I mean, are people going to work as normal, or are they all being told to stay indoors?
It's very, very quiet. Everyone's being told to stay indoors. So it is, and that's because there's shrapnel just flying out of the air and landing. So it is, that's the reality. So yes, we are being told to stay indoors. And the roads which are normally just so busy are empty, which is the only plus side.
Yes,
I suppose. Yeah.
Better for traffic. You say you're getting these alerts. I assume that's from the government. What form do they take? Have you got a mobile phone app? Are they taking over the mobile phone transmission system? How are you receiving this information?
It came through our phone at 1 o'clock on Sunday morning.
And that was just an alert that popped up on the screen?
Yeah, telling us to go underground. Well, no, it wasn't an alert that popped up on the screen. It was literally an alarm.
Okay.
An alarm that came through the phone, and that was at. And then there was another one.
And when you say go underground, where do you go underground?
Underground car park. Any underground car park that you can find, basically. Right. And most of these blocks of blocks of apartments, I shouldn't call them flats. Blocks of apartments they've all got underground car parks. So yeah, that's where my other son spent that entire night.
I don't know how interested you are in politics, Sandra, but what's your view of this situation politically? Do you think Britain should be involved, or should we just watch and wait?
I personally think Britain should be involved. Yeah, I do.
Well, look, Sandra, I've known you a long time. Look after yourself. Be careful. And if you're told to go underground, make sure you do. Don't take any risks, and get back when you can.
Indeed.
Sandra Roycroft-Davis in Dubai.
Just before I let you go, are you going to carry on with your promoting your business there?
Totally. Oh my gosh, yes, absolutely that.
That's the spirit.
Well, not cowed by the war. Sandra, thank you so much for joining us.
That's the spirit.
Of course, we're going to take a short break now, but Britain's Newsroom will be back very shortly with all the latest.
She's great, isn't she?
She is, absolutely.
Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News every week.
You're not only watching and listening to our programmes, you're becoming part of them too.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. On the M8, a broken down vehicle is partially blocking the Kingston Bridge eastbound, so expect a slow crawl. On the M4 eastbound, congestion is building between junction 28 at Tredegar Park and junction 24 at Coldra. In Yorkshire, the A64 westbound is shut after a collision between the A169 and the junction with the A1237 York North Road. Northamptonshire's M1 southbound has 2 lanes closed between junction 13 and junction 12 due to a vehicle incident. And on the trains, Greater Anglia services are disrupted between Lowestoft and Ipswich. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
A camper van and cash could be yours in our very latest Great British Giveaway. You could be driving away in this brand new Benavan 122. This 2026 model, worth over £67,000, comes with all of the mod cons you'd expect. And that's not all, as you'll also get an incredible £25,000 in tax-free cash to boost your bank account this year. For a chance to win a camper van and cash, text prize to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB20 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of May. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that, because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
Needs to
stop.
You think we can allow?
Politics, policy, parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good morning, it's 10 o'clock on Monday the 2nd of March. We are live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
So is this another significant U-turn from the Prime Minister?
The United States has requested permission to use British bases. We have taken the decision to accept this request.
Well, Sir Keir Starmer gives the US the green light to use the bases in Fairford and Gloucestershire and Diego Garcia in the Chagos Islands. But just a few hours later, the British RAF base in Cyprus was targeted by 2 drones.
Combat operations continue at this time in full force, and they will continue until all of our objectives are achieved.
Donald Trump returning to the White House, warning Americans more US military personnel could lose their lives.
And more stranded Brits. The government is working on an emergency plan to evacuate tens of thousands of people out of the region.
Well, flights to and from the region cancelled here at London Heathrow, and across other London airports we're seeing mass cancellations as more than 100,000 people register their presence in the region.
Oil prices are surging after 3 ships attacked near the Strait of Hormuz. Will we see the price rise at the forecourt too?
And would you live next door to Cromer or next door to a migrant camp?
Well, look, I mean, I'm in a constituency that's had asylum hotels as well.
Happy, would you, with your children?
Look, I do understand, but look, we've got to put people somewhere.
Well, the Home Secretary exclusively tells GB News she would be willing to live next to a migrant camp, as today she's scrapping permanent refugee status.
Shabana Mahmood's response to the defeat in the Gorton and Denton by-election is to carry on and be tougher on migrants. But will the left buy this?
Chris talks about the by-election. How much of the politics, Miriam, do you think is tied up with the Prime Minister? Initially, they wouldn't even give a view in Downing Street or the Ministry of Defence as to whether they supported the military action. Now it's very limited support, i.e. to support blowing up missiles and missile storage camps. The least possible we could do.
Absolutely. And of course, lots will be made about needing to regain support from Muslim voters. Obviously, they were lost to Green, and I'm sure part of it is that. But also, the Labour Party was massively burnt by the Iraq War. And still, many Labour MP very angry that Blair went to war, that the party supported him. And they will not want another intervention in the Middle East that leads to that kind of shame for the party and also disaster in the region. So it's a very difficult one for Sir Keir Starmer, but I think we should look at the difference between what he says and what he does, because I think we will end up supporting this. If the US whistles, we will have to run. Yeah, and that politically is going to cause a lot of problems, because you've got Zach Polansky, the Green leader, the victor last week, who doesn't want any military intervention at all. I'm amazed he hasn't calls for the army to be scrapped. Because, honestly, his defence policy is, if we're under attack, we will respond legally. Great. Send for the lawyers. That's the answer, isn't it? Absolutely. As ever, what do you think? Send your views, post your comments by visiting gbnews.com/your say. But first, here's the news with Sophia Hill.
Miriam, thank you. Very good morning. It's just gone 10 o'clock. These are your latest headlines. While the top story, an RAF base in Cyprus has been hit by a suspected drone strike just hours after Sir Keir Starmer confirmed that the United States can use British bases for limited strikes on Iranian missile sites. The Ministry of Defence says the RAF at Akrotiri was struck overnight with no casualties and minimal damage, though non-essential personnel are being moved as a precaution. The Prime Minister says that British forces are not directly involved, describing the move as a limited defensive step to protect UK nationals and allies. The strike comes as the wider conflict intensifies, with reported casualties in Israel, Lebanon and Bahrain. Meanwhile, the government is now preparing contingency plans to evacuate more than 100,000 Britons from the Middle East. GB News spoke to Minister for North Africa and the Middle East, Hamish Faulkner, about the plans earlier this morning.
The many hundreds of thousands of British nationals who are in the region, we assess it's about 300,000. More than 100,000 have been in touch with the Foreign Office over the course of the weekend. In the face of those missile attacks, that recklessness on the part of the Iranians, we have given a specific and limited agreement to our United States allies in order that action can be taken against those missile launches.
Refugee status will become temporary from today, with all adult asylum claims reviewed every 30 months, as the Home Secretary presses ahead with sweeping reforms to tackle illegal migration. Shabana Mahmood has also confirmed that the grooming gangs inquiry is now effectively up and running, insisting there is no one silver bullet to fix what she calls a broken system. Amid anger over plans for migrant camps, she told GB News that she would personally live next door to one if it was part of the solution.
Would you live there? Would you have to live there with your children?
Yes, well, look, I think that if there was a military site in Birmingham Ladywood and it was taken over, I would accept that that's part of the solution. I do know, I'm not trying to do down the strength of feeling that's happening publicly. I know that people feel strongly about it, but, I think the hotels are posing an even bigger problem in this country, and we do, of course, have to put people somewhere.
The Conservatives have accused Labour of failing to protect Britain from foreign interference, warning that British democracy is under attack. The party claims that the government's proposed reforms could open the door to electoral fraud and do not go far enough to counter threats from states such as Russia and China. Labour rejects the criticism, but MPs are set to clash over the plans in Parliament today. Elsewhere, the first tariff-free shipment of British beef has arrived in the United States, marking a milestone in the UK-US economic prosperity deal. The agreement allows up to 13,000 tonnes of beef to be traded without tariffs each year, a deal worth up to £70 million annually for British farmers if fully used. The government says that the move will boost growth and support the farming sector, with Northern Ireland's Foyle Food Group sending the first shipment. The Metropolitan Police is missing nearly half of its officers' DNA from its elimination database, along with more than a fifth of fingerprints. These records are used to rule out contamination at crime scenes, but gaps in the system could also hamper efforts to identify wrongdoing within the force itself. The figures have prompted renewed questions about oversight and internal safeguards following past high-profile cases. And rail fare across England have been frozen for the first time in 3 decades in a move aimed at easing pressure on commuters. From this week, regulated fares, including season tickets and peak returns, will not rise, affecting more than 1 billion journeys a year. The government says that the freeze will help with the cost of living while supporting economic growth. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More from me in half an hour.
Hello, good morning and welcome. This is Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Prime Minister has given the United States permission to use 2 UK military bases to destroy Iranian missiles.
Well, the 2 British air bases he's referring to are Fairford in Gloucestershire and Diego Garcia in the Chagos Islands.
And hours after his announcement, an RAF base in Cyprus was hit by at least 1 drone.
Well, joining us now is the former Defence Secretary, Sir Liam Fox. Sir Liam, good morning. So much to talk about in this now ongoing conflict. But we've been talking about the base in Cyprus. We understand that that drone actually might have come from Lebanon rather than Iran. Is that your understanding?
Well, I don't have any information on that, but it's very clear that whether the government believe that Britain is involved in this crisis, the Iranians, the Iranian state, the IRGC, believe that all allies of the United States in the region or within their reach are legitimate targets. And that should be what's guiding the British policy. When the minister was talking about the people in the Middle East, British citizens being at risk from reckless acts by Iran, they're not reckless acts. They are aggressive, hostile, and potentially murderous acts from a regime that is on its last legs, possibly in the end of days. And we need to understand exactly what they will be capable of doing in those times.
Were you surprised initially, Sir Liam, that neither the Prime Minister nor the Defence Secretary were even willing to say whether they supported what the United States and Israel were doing?
No, I wasn't really surprised because sitting on the fence is one of the areas where the government can play its trump card politically. But I did expect there to be a U-turn, so I wasn't too bothered about their initial position.
Why is Iran attacking its neighbouring Muslim states?
Because they're allies of the United States. This is a regime that's become more and more isolated. The United States has been building a consensus across the region through the Abraham Accords process, really since the first Trump administration. They have been building cooperation, economic links. Iran has become more and more isolated, and Iran regards any Arab country that is an ally of the United States, or indeed the United Kingdom by extension, as an enemy. And as the regime gets more and more reduced to its core of the IRGC, they are fighting for their survival. To them, it's an existential battle because they know that the people of Iran want them to be replaced. They know that many of the countries in the region regard them as a threat to their stability and security, and want to see a prosperous, free, a democratic Iran in its place. These people have nowhere else to go. They will fight to the end. Therefore, it's essential that we degrade their ability militarily to be able to carry out the sort of murderous attacks that we can expect to see from the IRGC.
Would you support an escalation of Britain's involvement, Liam, in the sense would you want to see British planes in the air attacking missile installations themselves?
Well, this is really an operation by the United States and Israel. I think if they wanted our help, they'd be perfectly free to ask for it. And I think if they did, we should be willing to give it.
Now, Sir Liam, what's your view of the war in Iraq, where the US, with our help, went in with the express purpose to topple the regime there? It turns out on a false premise. Widely now in the UK, that was seen as a mistake. Do you think that Trump could be in danger of committing a similar mistake here in Iran?
Well, the most difficult task in what's happening in Iran is what there is change to. We have seen the death of the supreme leader, who was a particularly violent, aggressive despot, who was willing to murder thousands, tens of thousands of his own citizens to enable the regime to stay in place. We know what they're capable of. But we don't know what regime change could lead to. Regime change away from the theocrats of the current regime could lead to something like the 10-point plan set out by Mariam Rajavi of the MEK, with a free Iran, a pluralistic Iran with freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of politics. Or it could be simply replacing the theocrats with another hardline regime that's not religiously based, but still as tyrannical, based probably around the IRGC. What we don't know is what level of organization there really is inside Iran that would topple the regime if the military and security apparatus was suitably degraded. That is the biggest risk, because change isn't just from what you have today, it's what you're going to tomorrow. And I think that it's not clear what that would be. But what is clear is that any weakening of the regime is good for the Iranian people. They have suffered so terribly under 40 years of the most brutal dictatorship and religious oppression that we now have a whole generation of young people who've never known anything else. And the question will be, how organized are the resistance, the democratic resistance inside Iran, and how would they be able to topple the regime if it is weakened sufficiently by the sort of action being taken by Israel and the United States? And how much safer will the region be, including the British citizens who are living there, if we are able to degrade Iran's ability to send drones and missiles almost at will across the region, and of course supplying Russia with large numbers of drones and missiles for their aggressive war in Ukraine.
Maybe it's the military within Iran, Salim, who have to rise up and turn against the theocrats.
Well, you've got two sorts of military inside Iran. You've got the Iranian armed forces, but you also have the IRGC and their associated apparatus, who are the tools not of Iran, the nation, but of the regime itself. And what will be crucial will be the attitude of those people, those who have been involved in the oppression of the Iranian people, whether they now see the choice which they do have between continuing allegiance to what is now a failed and broken theocratic state, or a move to a much more permissive liberal Iran. They need to understand that they will be held accountable for the decisions that they take in the hours and days ahead. They will have to choose which side they are on. They will be crucial in many ways to what happens in the immediate future in Iran. And in many ways, what they do will be key in determining whether the regime completely collapses or not.
Well, Sir Liam Fox, former Defence Secretary, thank you so much for joining us on GB News this morning.
Good to talk to him. Yeah. And now in our poll this morning, we're asking if the Prime Minister is playing it too safe on Iran. You can vote now.
Yes, just use that QR code in the corner of your screen or go on our website. Well, the Home Secretary has doubled down on the government's plans to close all hotels housing asylum seekers by 2029.
That was an interview with GB News' very own Chris Hope during Shabana Mahmood's visit to Denmark last week. So do take a listen.
Denmark's asylum system has cut claims to a 40-year low, and the UK government wants to find out what lessons they can learn. Yes. We went with Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, to Copenhagen to visit an arrival centre and a deportation centre. Later, she went to see an asylum appeals court. Ms. Mahmood saw the whole process in one day.
He wants to see how a left-wing government can tackle migration and make it work for people by removing the right to work, have a temporary reason to remain, remove the merry-go-round of appeals through the courts. A single appeal system works in Denmark. Can that be applied to the UK? And also, when a country becomes safe, people are removed here and go back from where they came. That's the idea that Shabana Mahmood wants to pick up from Denmark and see if it will work in the UK. The question is, will the left of her party accept that?
If you have an openness to the world and to migration in a way where you don't put any bonds on people that aren't able to contribute positively to this welfare model, then you will see your welfare model deteriorate and you will let down the people that you actually represent in government.
Tackling illegal migration remains a tough and difficult priority for the Labour government and also the party's natural supporter base. But Ms. Mahmood is determined to take action. From today, asylum cases will be reviewed every 30 months, not every 5 years. The hope is that more migrants will be deported.
There's no one silver bullet. I wish there was. Honestly, if I could just do one thing and it would solve it all, I would have done it. I would just say, beware people who come along and say, I can just do this one thing and it will be done, because it's not true. If it was, the Tories would have done it or we would have done it and it would have been sorted.
That approach is...
But we can fix this.
Time will tell if she can. Christopher Hope, GB News in Copenhagen, Denmark.
Back from Copenhagen and in the studio with us. Now, that's a real toughening of the language, isn't it, by the Home Secretary?
And indeed what she's doing here. So she's saying we'll review anyone who's been here after 30 months, 2.5 years, not 5 years. Why that matters is it stops them getting access into benefits. They obviously get NHS support already, but it stops them getting stuck into the British state, these migrants who maybe shouldn't be here. What they'll do, they'll review whether it's a safe country to return them to and then send them back. That's the idea, and I was saying, when will this happen?
Maybe you have to keep tabs with them.
Yes, well, and when will it happen?
How do they keep tabs on them all?
Yeah, that's right.
And she wouldn't say when it would happen, and I think this... And
Can she get this through her own political party?
That interview was carried out...
Revolt after the by-election last week.
Well, that was last Wednesday, that interview. And we've been on to them all weekend. Are you still sticking with this? Yes, we are. We're sticking with this. The left will hate this. There's about 30 or so left-wing Labour MPs who are against this. She's doing a speech to a think tank this week, laying it at the ground. She talked to GBNews about it. She knows our viewers care a lot about it. Sure. Not to other broadcasters. She's taken the fight, frankly, to where the debate has to happen, which is where our viewers and listeners are extremely sceptical this government wants to tackle the issue of illegal migration. I used the opportunity to ask other questions in my interview. I asked about the grooming gangs inquiry. Work starts next month. That's good. She says work starts already. Ad Dame Baroness Anne Longfield has already started work on trying to get the terms of reference correct. So work will start on time next month. That's a good thing. I also wanted to know about the issue of Crowborough. Now, the Crowborough community, they lost their... or they weren't allowed to carry on with their challenge against this Crowborough camp becoming a migrant camp. But I wanted to know whether Shabana Mahmood, would live next door to a migrant camp. Now, took four efforts to give me an answer, but here's what she told GB News.
No, we do have to get out of hotels. We've said we'll get out of every single asylum hotel. That's a manifesto commitment by the end of this Parliament. So we've got to do that. And military sites are a good alternative.
So what do you say to people near Crowborough? And would you live next door to Crowborough or next door to a migrant camp?
Well, look, I mean, I'm in a constituency that's had asylum hotels as well.
Happy, would you, with your children?
Look, I do understand. But look, we've got to put people somewhere. We've got to address the pull factor, the public order issues. We've got to address the impact on local communities as well. So what I would say is, you know, we are putting in a facility that will be well managed with you know, security coverage that is 24/7, working really closely.
They can come and go, can't they?
Working really closely with the local police as well. Yes, because they're not detained, so it's not like a prison. It is an accommodation facility whilst people's claims are being heard. I know it's difficult, but we are required to put people somewhere, and I do think that military sites are a better alternative than the hotels that have spread across the country.
But would you live there? Would you be happy to live there with your children?
Yes, well, look, you know, I think that if there was a military site in Birmingham Ladywood and it was taken over, you know, I would accept that that's part of the solution. I do know, I'm not trying to do down the strength of feeling that's happening publicly. I know that people feel strongly about it, but, you know, I think the hotels are posing an even bigger problem in this country, and we do, of course, have to put people somewhere.
There telling us she would live next to illegal migrants if it was part of the solution offered by the government. So she understands there's a bigger picture.
Her neighbours will be thrilled with that.
People in Crowborough will be less keen, and there isn't really. She has migrant hotels in her contingency, but no army camps.
She's pretty impressive, Chris.
Very impressive, I think. And I think she's great to talk to us, not to other broadcasters first. We are aware the debate's being held every single day, rightly so. Mark White's forecasting big numbers coming across the channel this week. The day I met her last week on that Wednesday, 500 came across the most this year. She knows about it. I showed her a video of the arrivals that day from our producer down in Ramsgate this time. She gets the anger, the concern, the unfairness of jumping the queue. Brits are happy to look after people who are having a hard time, bring them in. If they come in an orderly fashion, in a kind of vetted, in a kind of... But when they break the rules...
They're breaking the law.
Yeah.
It just goes against everything about what...
And one of the points that she's made, which I think perhaps people have forgotten about for a while, is that refugee should be a temporary status, and the idea being that when the situation that you have fled from resolves, you should be able to go back. And certainly, in all wars in the past, refugees have crossed borders, and the same of Ukrainians moving to Poland, let's say. At some point, they will move back. But we've kind of forgotten about that, so I think it's a really good point. Also, she's tackling indefinite leave to remain, which has been one of the big pulling points for asylum seekers coming across. Do you think she will get those changes through the Labour Party? They are quite significant.
They are relaxed about the rebellion when it goes to... There'll be various votes in the House of Commons in coming weeks and months. About 30 left-wing Labour MPs might be against it, but they have got a majority of 160. Let's not forget that. They should just brush it to one side. And indeed, a fight with the left on this is a good place to be for them, because it will convince those reform-adjacent supporters, well, look, Labour's trying to do this. It takes time to turn the ship around.
Might drive more of their people into the arms of the Greens, of course.
Well, it could do. I mean, she's totally... what Reform are offering, which is deporting 6,000 people a week by leaving the ECHR, I mean, the government thinks that's ridiculous, and indeed hasn't yet been tested against any form of reality there.
OK.
Maybe she's the secret reform defector.
That would be a significant...
That would be news, Andrew.
Press conference 11 o'clock, that's that's a joke, not really.
That's Chris Ape, our political editor. Then we've got some breaking news for you. Cyprus State TV says sirens have gone off at the RAF base there. We've got 3,500 military personnel. We'll bring you the latest on that.
But coming up next, when the conflict escalated on Saturday, the president of the EU Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, acted swiftly, saying that she'll convene a special security college, but not until Monday morning in office hours.
Can you imagine if they ever got their way with the European army? It would only fight Monday to Friday, 9 till 5.
The European Working Time Directive is not suspended for World War III.
They are so ridiculous.
Well, we'll be going through that and more with William Yarwood and Matthew Talbot. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up? About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
The head of planetary defence at NASA has revealed what keeps her up at night, and that is tens of thousands of city-killer asteroids that remain undetected. They're out there, they're in space, they're heading our way. We need something to predict where they're going to.
Yeah, well, there was a case about 4 years ago, where they sent a spaceship up called DART to hit a massive asteroid which was heading our way, and it was something like 14,000 miles an hour it went at, and it hit this thing and diverted it, and the planet was saved. It made a bit of a story at the time. The problem is that it's the middle-sized ones. Lots of these asteroids come into the planet Earth every year, but they're so small they disintegrate on...
They burn up in the atmosphere and things, yeah.
The big ones we know about, and like the one which DART went out, it was 460 foot wide. It went out and diverted it. What they can't manage is thousands of these asteroids, which are the middle size, which if they hit the planet Earth, it won't end life on Earth, but it will cause massive regional damage. They're the ones that they're worried about. So there's no... This expert says we sit awake at night worrying about it because there's so many of them.
We're as well not knowing.
Bring back Bruce Willis. Do you remember the film Armageddon?
Yeah, Armageddon.
Where he's a hero.
What I would
goes
say
and blows one up.
What I would say to worried viewers and listeners is that, of course, we're still here and these things have been coming around for years and years and they haven't hit us. So let's just keep our fingers crossed.
GB News, the People's Channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
It's 27 minutes past 10. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Got our panel here, former Labour advisor Matthew Torbet and William Yarwood from the Taxpayers Alliance. Before we get into what's happening in Iran specifically, Matthew, the by-election on Thursday, I'd predicted a Green Party victory. Having talked to senior Labour people over the weekend, they were completely taken aback how badly they did, which is why the Prime Minister went up there, because he thought maybe there was a chance they'd hold it. But do you think the politics, the left, the collapse in Labour's vote, the Greens, who don't want any form of military intervention anywhere, is a constraint on Starmer and what he's doing at the moment? Or is it Lord Hermer, the Attorney General?
I believe Lord Hermer is very central to the Prime Minister's thinking on this sort of stuff. It would be a little bit consistent. Keir Starmer obviously very famously wrote a piece for The Guardian back in 2003 saying the Iraq War was a bad idea, we shouldn't be doing this. So if that is his general outlook, I don't think it is the by-election politics, although we'll learn more tonight because he's going to address the Parliamentary Labour Party again and say, please stick with me again for the second time in a month. I think this is maybe his more liberal human rights instincts, I would say, the idea of playing it by ear, I would say.
William, it seems to me that almost overnight, many people who hated the Iraq War, lots of people, Labour of course, but in retrospect, many other people as well, have now suddenly forgotten the appalling consequences of that intervention in the Middle East and are unquestioningly welcoming this military action.
Yeah, it's rather interesting, isn't it? Although one thing I will say is that I think the Prime Minister was correct yesterday when he said that we have learned the lessons of the Iraq War and therefore we're not going to go ahead with full-scale regime change. So, you know, no boots on the ground.
Well, it's not
no
really up to our Prime Minister.
No, it's not indeed. Not much is. But nevertheless, at least from what I can see, President Trump's actions and the Prime Minister of Israel's actions seem to be more to do with targeting specific areas in Iran in order to take out their, military capabilities and take out its leadership so that the Iranian people can try and stage some sort of grassroots revolution. Now, I understand that's quite a high order, but nevertheless, I think there has been lessons learned. But you are right, it is interesting how some people have just switched overnight. But one thing I will say is I think our overall political establishment is a lot more careful than they were 10, 20 years ago.
Yeah. Matthew, do you think that's behind some of the reluctance in the Labour Party to support this action? Obviously, the Labour Party MPs are not great supporters of Trump, but also many of them were burnt by Blair in the Iraq War.
I think the shadow of Iraq, is always going to be over Labour and Labour MPs, and it was, only 20 sort of years ago. It lives long in the memory, but politically was only 2 minutes ago. I think my concerns would be there's been no debate or discussion about this sort of war. It's clearly illegal. The idea that Iran were, weeks away.
Is it illegal, or do we just need to wait for the Americans and the Israelis to provide more evidence of why they had to strike then?
If they can prove that there was an imminent threat, which
we have heard the phrase 7 days for them to build the bomb,
and let's not forget,
some time.
Benjamin Netanyahu and the narrative that Steve Witkoff gave last week, that any expert on Iran said we have no idea what he's on about, in saying they're days away, they're weeks away, is what Netanyahu has been saying for 40 years, on and off. And actually, I saw this morning, I couldn't get over this. Still, on the White House's website this morning, it says Iran's nuclear facilities have been obliterated and suggestions otherwise are fake news. That was June last year. Yet, a year on, we're here again. They've not been destroyed. So, again, this is going to be a war based on lies. Now, if the American president was up front and said, look, we're doing regime change, I'd have less truck with it. But the American people are clearly being lied to. This is being led by the Israeli president, and the problem is, a bit like Iraq, we get dragged into it. So I thought the Prime Minister was right at the weekend. I think he's given in a little bit and said, OK, you can use our air bases, but only defensively. And I just worry so much we're going to end up in a really tricky, sticky wicket on this.
I don't know if you heard Liam Fox earlier, William. He said, the former Tory Defence Secretary, he said, we should be involved because we are part of it, because anyone who's an ally of the United States is a target for Iran. Hence, they've been sending bombs to Bahrain, where we have a British military base, the UAE.
I think that Liam Fox is obviously his expertise is a lot better than mine, but it is always good to back your allies, I think, and also the idea that Iran hadn't provoked us in any way. Iran has been waging a war on the West since its inception as Islamic regime. Their original goal, I remember there was an interview with the now dead Ayatollah, or former Ayatollah, and he was saying, what's your main policy objective? It's to destroy America and the United Kingdom and the West more broadly. And now, since the Ayatollah's been dead, they've declared a fatwa on the West and said, Muslims around the world need to rise up and take over their regime. So I think that this regime is not one you can negotiate with. It's not one that is interested in trade agreements, is not interested in all the normal diplomatic ways you would get someone on side. And I think that if push comes to shove, we do need to back our allies in the United States, because not only is it the correct thing to do for the special relationship, but it's the correct thing to do on a moral ground, because I think it's appalling that we've allowed this Islamic regime to terrorise the world and oppress its own people for so long.
But the special relationship only exists when the Americans want something. It never works the other way. And I think if, like 9/11, there was an attack on America, that's very different. If America wants to go and kick somebody and then wants to drag us in as a shield and go, don't let them kick us back, that's ridiculous in many ways, and I worry that we'll see lives lost. We've seen 3 US military personnel dead already in this sort of these attacks. There's no plan. There's no plan. Trump said last night to NBC, this is insane, by the way, to have this thought, let alone say it live on a microphone, that the attack was so successful it knocked out most of the candidates we wanted to take over. Trump told me it's not going to be anybody that we were thinking of because they're all dead. Second or third place are dead. All that.
It is still extraordinary. So we can all laugh, but this is human life we're talking about. I agree.
We're having people attacked in Cyprus. There's nothing really to do with us, but now our army personnel and military personnel are under attack. I've got friends in Cyprus, live near the base. I was texting last night, I've not heard back. I assume they're all right. But this is not a man that if you're going to oversee military regime change, which, by the way, when was the last time we bombed democracy into anywhere, whether that be Iraq, Syria, Libya or anywhere else? What we've done, and what America do very well, the first 24 hours is always incredibly impressive. The intel and all the rest of it, what they did in Venezuela recently, amazing how they got in and out. What's left afterwards and who's really in charge and what? And I can't help but feel that this is almost a bit of a proxy, because the Strait of Hormuz is now closed. 20 million barrels of oil a day go across, mostly to China, and that's 1/5 of the world's oil. So there's so much more at play here that we're not being told about.
We may have to buy more oil from America.
And there's been a huge surge in oil prices, which we will discuss a bit later in the programme. William, Matthew, we'll hear from you shortly. Here's time for our 6-second news update now. There was Sophia Hill.
Andrew, thank you. Very good morning. These are the top headlines just after 10:30. The RAF base at Criterion, Cyprus, has been struck by a drone just hours after Sir Keir Starmer confirmed that the UK would allow the United States to use British bases for strikes against Iranian missile sites. Officials say that the base remains fully operational with minimal damage and no casualties, although families of personnel have been moved as a precaution. The incident comes amid escalating regional tensions as the government prepares contingency plans for the possible evacuation of more than 100,000 Britons from the Middle East. Brits are urged to follow local advice and register with the Foreign Office. Elsewhere, the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, has told GB News she would personally live next to a migrant camp if it was part of the solution. She insisted there is no one silver bullet to fix what she calls a broken system, as today refugee status will become temporary, with all adult asylum claims reviewed every 30 months. The first tariff-free shipment of British beef has arrived in the United States, marking a milestone in the UK-US economic prosperity deal. The agreement allows up to 30,000 tonnes of beef to be traded without tariffs each year, a deal worth up to £70 million annually for British farmers if fully used. The Metropolitan Police is missing nearly half of its officers' data from its elimination database, along with more than 1/5 of fingerprints. These records are used to rule out contamination at crime scenes, but gaps in the system could also hamper efforts to identify wrongdoings within the force. And rail fares across England have been frozen for the first time in 3 decades. From this week, regulated fares, including season tickets and peak returns, will not rise, affecting more than 1 billion journeys a year. Those are the headlines for now. More on those stories at the top of the hour.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Thank you, Sophia. Well, coming up next, 100,000 Brits say they want to be evacuated from the Middle East. So how will the Foreign Office carry out this emergency evacuation? This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head into a new week, we have high pressure building. We'll see a mix of cloud and also some sunshine, but where we do see any sunny spells, it's certainly going to be feeling a bit more like spring. Now for today, unfortunately, there is still some rain in the forecast. Quite a wet day on offer across parts of Scotland, northwest England, also parts of Wales and eventually southwest England. But to the south of any of this rain, lots of clear skies, so actually lots of sunshine around and lots of dry weather too. Some brighter spells too across northwest Scotland and Northern Ireland, though it's likely we'll start to see some showers into the afternoon. But as I say, where we do see any sunshine, some quite mild temperatures for the time of year, highs reaching around 15 degrees Celsius, so feeling a bit more like spring, particularly if you compare it to the weather we had yesterday. Now there will still be some cloud lingering on through this evening. This still thick enough to produce some light outbreaks of rain and drizzle, particularly across any hills of Wales or northern areas of England. Just a few showers starting to push into the west of Northern Ireland, also northwest Scotland. But otherwise, Scotland should see plenty of clear skies as we progress through into this evening. Any showers largely easing away. This is fairly similar across Northern Ireland too. And with those clear skies, that means temperatures will soon dip away here, and it's likely we'll see quite a patchy frost across Scotland and Northern Ireland. But anywhere to the south of this, we've still got plenty of cloudy skies, so that's going to hold up temperatures a little bit more. So more towards the mid-single figures across much of England and Wales, but across Scotland, Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, a much chillier start as we head our way into Tuesday. Now, through Tuesday, it's really when we start to see that high pressure building. So any cloud largely fizzling away. It might just linger for a time across southeast England, parts of the south as well. And this at times will produce some drizzle. But for most of the country, there'll be lots of dry weather around and lots of sunshine. Still that little bit cooler across northern areas, but where the cloud breaks up in the south, still feeling pleasant for the time of year. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Britain, for all of you who listen to GB News Radio.
Whether you're at home or on the go, you're making us Britain's news channel and Britain's radio station.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. In Lancashire, the M6 southbound between junctions 33 and 32 is affected by a broken-down vehicle, closing one of 3 lanes, but this should clear by 10:55 this morning. In Hampshire, the M271 southbound exit slip at junction 1 has lane restrictions due to ongoing works, with conditions easing by 11:34. Essential roadworks are closing the A8 westbound Showcase junction on and off slips. And on the trains, Greater Anglia is experiencing service disruption between Lowestoft and Ipswich. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Welcome back. It's 20 minutes to 11. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom.
Well, let's talk to our GB News Home Security Editor, Mark White, who's the expert on so many things. Mark, we know there's currently another air raid science going in Israel. Britain so far is doing the least that the President has asked. We are going to allow them to use 2 of our bases to try and take out missiles and missile storage areas. Are we capable of doing much more?
We could do a bit more, but it's not even that. It's just, you know, that you've had the Prime Minister just tying himself in knots, just getting caught up in everything he's had to say, couched in clear legal language that has been pre-sanctioned, probably by Lord Hermer, in terms of what he can and can't say. And like every statement that he's made, he starts with look, guys, we're not involved in the offensive action, but we are taking part in defensive actions. Then he says he's allowing the US to use bases. So that's, you know, RAF Fairford and also the Diego Garcia base on the Chagos Islands that we've heard so much about. So we're allowing the Americans to use these to go in and bomb the likes of missile launchers in Iran. We're up in the skies shooting down, as they've confirmed, Iranian drones and missiles coming over into the airspace of allies in the Gulf and the Middle East, and of course sovereign British bases. And we know RAF Akrotiri was targeted with not one but 2 drones yesterday.
That's our base in Cyprus. That's the base in Cyprus.
That's the base in Cyprus, and we believe that was the Hezbollah terrorist group in southern Lebanon that would have fired those drones, because they very likely did not come all the way from Iran. So, of course, they're able to reach Cyprus because they're much closer from southern Lebanon, just across the Mediterranean there. So given all that, what is the difference between, you know, taking these missiles out in the air and actually going one step further and taking them out before they launch? If you actually look at the logic of it, it's far safer to try and strike these launchers before they send ballistic missiles and other missiles and drones up into the air to fall on something. Because if you take them out, even if you're successful in taking them out, you don't miss a ballistic missile and it crashes down to the earth. You've got all the debris from a missile interception falling on the people below.
But would that fit in with the criteria defined by the Attorney General?
No, of course it wouldn't, and that's where we are.
Limited defensive purposes. So if we were to use our jets to attack the military installations, that would be an act of aggression?
Well, we're attacking the missiles, you know?
I know,
we're attacking the missiles coming
100%.
over. You're attacking a launcher that's about to launch a missile. I don't see the distinction clearly. You know, they do, and they're the legal minds work here, but it just seems weak. You know, I put to the Foreign Minister, Hamish Faulkner, this morning, like, you know, he's just continuing to sit on the fence here. Why doesn't he come off the fence? He's not yet, the British government has not yet said in any way, shape or form that it supports the US military action here.
His best efforts with the Defence Secretary yesterday. She asked 5 times, he wouldn't answer.
Well, something that does not look weak is the incredible show of force by the United States and Israel. Just from a military point of view, absolutely extraordinary what they've achieved. I think the IDF have said they dropped 2,000 bombs in over 700 sorties in just 30 hours. This is an incredible display of military might.
Yeah, I mean, just take the Israelis alone. 200 aircraft they had up on Saturday taking part in these initial strikes. Now, they're the junior partners in this effort, so you can only imagine how many resources the US have got in play here and have had over the last few days now, continuing, as they have this morning, their strikes on Iranian targets. And to answer your point earlier, you know, you could say, what on earth, you know, could we do? And we are really limited. You're right, we are. Our military has been so diminished, hollowed out, after actually not just this government, but successive governments. We don't even have any Royal Naval assets in the region around there, where we may be talking about having to put in place plans to evacuate hundreds of thousands of people from areas where the airspace has been shut down.
And it's not as if we weren't aware that this might be happening because of the huge build-up of military on the American part, the greatest fleet since the Armada.
Oh, it's taken everyone in government by surprise, seemingly.
Extraordinary. Well, Mark, thank you so much, and we'll have more from you later. But coming up next, we will have the latest travel advice, as Mark was referring to there, as the government is planning an emergency evacuation of 100,000 Brits from the Middle East. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Spells of rain around the Canary Islands, also southern parts of Spain, but elsewhere across Europe, plenty of dry, fine weather and some sunshine to go alongside that too. Now, some brisk northerly winds affecting the Canary Islands, parts of Madeira, also southern parts of Spain, as well as some rain. This could be heavy at times, possibly even bringing in some thunderstorms. But elsewhere across Europe and parts of the Mediterranean, lots of dry, fine weather and plenty of sunshine too. This should continue into next week away from Barcelona, where we are expecting some showers.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health, Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back. 11 minutes to 11. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Well, up to 100,000 Britons are trapped in the Middle East. They've registered with the Foreign Office to be evacuated as soon as possible. Of course, we've just heard that there's no ships there.
No.
Amazing, isn't it?
Because it'll be like passport queue where they say, well, maybe in 6 months you can have one.
And no flight. So let's talk to GB News national reporter Jack Carson, who's at Heathrow Airport. Jack, tell us what's happening there. Flights being cancelled left, right and centre, I gather.
Well, that is exactly right, but it's not just the case here at London Heathrow. You've got Stansted, Gatwick, airports across the United Kingdom are seeing cancellations across the board, all for flights all heading to and also arriving from that Gulf region. What we understand is Etihad Airways have said that all flights to and from Abu Dhabi are suspended until 2 o'clock UAE time tomorrow. Emirates releasing a statement in the past few hours saying that they've temporarily suspended all operations to and from Dubai until 3 o'clock UAE time, also on Tuesday. But not just in that part of the region, we're now getting disruption heading more widely. EasyJet say they've cancelled all of their flights connecting Cyprus and the United Kingdom until Thursday. We've seen in the past few hours, haven't we, the military action that is taking place from around there. But just to give you a sense of, of the difficulties in the region, the difficulties that the Foreign Office are now having to have operationally to try and work out how exactly they get people back. We know that more than 100,000 people have what's called registered their presence in the region. So there'll be people that have registered for updates from the Foreign Office and the respective local embassies, having updates, of course. But that is the problem for the Foreign Office, is exactly how they help these hundreds of thousands of people that have now signed up looking for support.
Well, thank you very much, Jack, for that. Of course, very worrying for Brits stuck there.
He is.
Well, someone who might know a little bit more.
She'll know all. She knows everything. If anyone knows anything, it's Lisa Minnow, the travel editor of The Sun. Lisa, this is, apart from the massive worry and inconvenience for people in the Middle East, this is a disaster for the airlines, because these are some very, very busy flight routes.
Yeah. I mean, just this week alone, we were due to have 180,000 sort of passengers travelling from the UK to the UAE. So it gives you an idea of just the impact this is going to have. That's just from the UK. And these are major hub airports. You're talking about 500,000 passengers travelling through them. That's Doha, Dubai, Abu Dhabi every day. So the impact is just astonishing.
Now, we understand that Saudi airspace is still open. Is the plan to try to get people across the border into Saudi Arabia and then potentially fly them from there?
I mean, that is one way, but I mean, the sheer number of people we're talking about, 100,000 have now registered they're in, that they are in the Middle East. Of that, you would expect probably, at least half, if not slightly more than that, to be tourists who are there on holiday. Yesterday, we were estimating it to be about 50,000. I could say that could go up to 70,000. And then it's not just those people there, it's people trapped across the world, unable to travel from places like Thailand, Australia, into those hub airports as well.
Sort of practical level, Lisa, what happens to the tickets? I mean, have they lost the money on the ticket, or will they have to pay to get these emergency flights?
We're still to find out. I mean, the government are looking at, we have yet to see any detail in this, they're looking at some kind of emergency repatriation flights. So we just won't know what's going to happen there. If you think the last time we had something major like this was when Thomas Cook went bust, and the CAA basically, they leased huge A380 planes from Malaysian Airways to get passengers back into the UK when the Thomas Cook flights were all grounded. So something similar to that could be happening, but we don't know yet exactly what that will be. There's another slight complication in that the rules vary depending on whether or not you've booked your flight to and from the UK with an EU or UK airline, or if you're flying with the likes of Etihad, Emirates, because the rules are different. Passenger rules, passenger rights are different depending if you're flying with an EU airline, UK airline, like British Airways, or...
Lisa Minnow, I'm so sorry, we are going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much. Do check the Foreign Office website if you have concerns.
Chaos still ahead. We're going to have the latest from the Middle East with Brits stranded in the war zone. This is Britain's Newsroom, Britain's favourite morning show on GB News with Andrew and Miriam.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head into a new week, we have high pressure building. We'll see a mix of cloud and also some sunshine, but where we do see any sunny spells, it's certainly going to be feeling a bit more like spring. Now for today, unfortunately, there is still some rain in the forecast. Quite a wet day on offer across parts of Scotland, northwest England, also parts of Wales and eventually southwest England. But to the south of any of this rain, lots of clear skies, so actually lots of sunshine around and lots of dry weather too. Some brighter spells too across northwest Scotland and Northern Ireland, though it's likely we'll start to see some showers into the afternoon. But as I say, where we do see any sunshine, some quite mild temperatures for the time of year, highs reaching around 15 degrees Celsius, so feeling a bit more like spring, particularly if you compare it to the weather we had yesterday. Now there will still be some cloud lingering on through this evening. This is still thick enough to produce some light outbreaks of rain and drizzle, particularly across any hills of Wales or northern areas of England. Just a few showers starting to push into the west of Northern Ireland, also northwest Scotland, but otherwise Scotland should see plenty of clear skies as we progress through into this evening. Any showers largely easing away. This is fairly similar across Northern Ireland too, and with those clear skies that means temperatures will soon dip away here, and it's likely we'll see quite a patchy frost across Scotland and Northern Ireland. But anywhere to the south of this we've still got plenty of cloudy skies, so that's going to hold up temperatures a little bit more, so more towards the mid-single figures across much of England and Wales, but across Scotland, Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, a much chillier start as we head our way into Tuesday. Now, through Tuesday, it's really when we start to see that high pressure building. So any cloud largely fizzling away. It might just linger for a time across southeast England, parts of the south as well. And this at times will produce some drizzle. But for most of the country, there'll be lots of dry weather around and lots of sunshine. Still that little bit cooler across northern areas, but where the cloud breaks up in the south, still feeling pleasant for the time of year. Bye-bye.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
You could be the proud owner of a brand new Benevan 122. This very latest 2026 model comfortably sleeps 4, comes complete with built-in kitchen, compact washroom, and is worth over £67,000. But that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £25,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like in the coming year. For a chance to win a camper van and cash, text prize to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB20 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of May. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Bold. They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on a BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What we're going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point.
Nothing's held back,
And if you think this was the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock, only on GB News.
It's 11 o'clock on Monday, the 2nd of March, live across the UK. Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Well, have we witnessed another U-turn from our Prime Minister?
The United States has requested permission to use British bases. We have taken the decision to accept this request.
So that's Sir Keir Starmer giving the US the go-ahead to use Fairford in Gloucestershire and Diego Garcia in the Chagos Islands. Just hours later, the British RAF base in Cyprus was targeted by 2 drones.
Combat operations continue at this time in full force, and they will continue until all of our objectives are achieved.
Well, that's President Donald Trump. He's warned Americans that more US personnel could lose their lives, and find out why he's very disappointed in Starmer over Iran.
And breaking news, after those drone strikes at RAF Akrotiri in Cyprus, we can tell you the civilian airport in Paphos is currently being evacuated because of a suspicious object that has been seen approaching the airport on radar.
And the government is now working on an emergency plan to evacuate tens of thousands of people from the region.
And inevitably, oil prices have surged after 3 ships have been attacked near the Strait of Hormuz. Will we see the price of oil rise at the forecourt too?
And would you live next door to Krober or next door to a migrant camp?
Well, look, I mean, I'm in a constituency that's had asylum hotels as well.
You wouldn't be happy, would you, with your children?
Look, I do understand, but look, we've got to put people somewhere.
That's the Home Secretary exclusively telling GB News she would be willing to live next to a migrant camp. Today she is scrapping permanent refugee status. I give her credit for being bold, because scrapping permanent refugee status, before we used to review it after 5 years, it's now going to be 30 months, will alienate many of our own backbenchers. And we saw what happened in the by-election last week. Massive vote for the Greens, who don't want any limits on migration, by the way. If you think they're a nice, cosy party, they're not. They don't want any limits on migration at all. And you get benefits from day one.
That's right. They also want to legalise drugs and all sorts of other crazy policies.
Yeah, but they'll teach your kids in school how to use them.
Yes,
that's okay
fine.
then.
Yeah.
Is that going to be the teacher showing them how to shoot up?
Probably. Who knows? It is definitely a protest vote.
What's happening to this country?
But I do. So Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, she's gone to Denmark, where the left are in power, but have managed to make immigration and asylum no longer a particularly political issue. They've reached consensus on it. They've managed to reduce refugee applications by quite some way. But my question is, although everything she's doing sounds very sensible, and I personally agree with it, I don't know if it's going to be enough to stop people crossing the Channel in small boats, because all these processes take time. They will be allowed to stay in the UK for some considerable period of time before attempting to be removed. And I don't think there's really any other way to stop the boats than to deport people as soon as they get here, but they're still a long way from considering that in the Labour Party.
Absolutely. Now, as ever, we want to know what you think. Send your views, post your comments by visiting gbnews.com/yoursay. But first, here's the news with Sophia Hill.
Miriam, thank you. Very good morning. It's just gone 11 o'clock. These are your latest headlines. The top story: an RAF base in Cyprus has been hit by a suspected drone strike just hours after Sir Keir Starmer confirmed the United States can use British bases for limited strikes on Iranian missile sites. The Ministry of Defence says that RAF Akrotiri was struck overnight with no casualties and minimal damage, though non-essential personnel are being moved as a precaution. The Prime Minister says that British forces are not directly involved, describing the move as a limited defensive step to protect UK nationals and allies. The strike comes as the wider conflict intensifies, with reported casualties in Israel, Lebanon and Bahrain. Meanwhile, the government is now preparing contingency plans to evacuate more than 100,000 Brits from the Middle East. GB News spoke to Minister for North Africa and the Middle East, Hamish Falconer, about the plans earlier this morning.
The many hundreds of thousands of British nationals who are in the region, we assess it's about 300,000. More than 100,000 have been in touch with the Foreign Office over the course of the weekend. In the face of those missile attacks, that recklessness on the part of the Iranians, we have given a specific and limited agreement to our United States allies in order that action can be taken against those missile launches.
Refugee status will become temporary from today, with all adult asylum claims reviewed every 30 months as the Home Secretary presses ahead with sweeping reforms to tackle illegal migration. Shabana Mahmood has also confirmed that the grooming gangs inquiry is now effectively up and running, insisting that there is no one silver bullet to fix what she calls a broken system. Amid anger over plans for migrant camps, she told GB News that she would personally live next door to one if it was part of the solution.
But would you live there? Would you be happy to live there with your children?
Yes, well, look, I think that if there was a military site in Birmingham Ladywood and it was taken over, I would accept that that's part of the solution. I do know, I'm not trying to do down the strength of feeling that's happening publicly. I know that people feel strongly about it, but I think the hotels are posing an even bigger problem in this country, and we do, of course, have to put people somewhere.
The Conservatives have accused Labour of failing to protect Britain from foreign interference, warning that British democracy is under attack. The party claims that the government's proposed reforms could open the door to electoral fraud and that they do not go far enough to counter threats from states such as Russia and China. Labour rejects this criticism, but MPs are set to clash over the plans in Parliament later today. Elsewhere, the first tariff-free shipment of British beef has arrived in the United States, marking a milestone in the UK-US economic prosperity deal. The agreement allows up to 13,000 tonnes of beef to be traded without tariffs each year, a deal worth up to £70 million annually for British farmers if fully used. The government says that the move will boost growth and support the farming sector, with Northern Ireland's Foyle Food Group sending the first shipment. The Metropolitan Police is missing nearly half of its officers' DNA from its elimination database, along with more than a fifth of fingerprints. These records are used to rule out contamination at crime scenes, but gaps in the system could also hamper efforts to identify wrongdoing within the force. The figures have prompted renewed questions about oversight and internal safeguards following past high-profile cases. And rail fares across England have been frozen for the first time in 3 decades. In a move aimed at easing pressure on commuters, from this week on, regulated fares, including season tickets and peak returns, will not rise. This will affect more than 1 billion journeys a year, as the government says that the freeze will help with the cost of living while supporting economic growth. Those are the latest headlines for now. Before I hand you back to Andrew and Miriam, let's quickly check in on the markets.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Here's a quick snapshot of this morning's markets. The pound will buy you $1.337 and €1.139. The price of gold is £4,023.99 per ounce, and the FTSE 100's at 10,823 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Hello, good morning. Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
And we've got some extraordinary breaking news. Donald Trump has told The Telegraph he is, quote, very disappointed in Sir Keir Starmer for initially blocking him from using Diego Garcia military base, you know, that's in the Chagos Islands, to carry out strikes on Iran. Joining us now is GBNews Home Security Editor Mark White. Well, that's a special relationship in a bad place.
Yeah, this goes to the heart of the kind of prevarication that we've had from this government, Keir Starmer in particular, and the 2 public statements that he's made when he's continuing effectively to sit on the fence, saying that he's not been involved in the offensive actions in Iran, but jets are up in a defensive capacity.
Specific limited defensive purpose.
Yeah, indeed. And then again last night, another statement begins by saying how we're not involved in any of the offensive operations, but this time he's relented. He is allowing the US to use 2 of our bases, RAF Fairford here in the UK, and also Diego Garcia in the Chagos Islands. But again, he's added caveats to that. It's limited to strikes that take out the likes of missile launchers, so not decapitation strikes against the regime hierarchy, for instance. And it's clear Donald Trump is absolutely livid because he had asked, it seems from what he's telling the Telegraph, for the US to be able to use Diego Garcia, a major base for the US in the Indian Ocean, to be able to launch these strikes that they had been planning contingencies for some months. Keir Starmer clearly and his government had said no. I think that's what prompted about 3 or 4 weeks ago this intervention from Donald Trump when he called it, in fact twice, he called it a very bad deal. He said, you know, that it was not a good deal to be handing back a group of islands to a country that had no legitimate claim on them. He's just repeated that again in the Telegraph article. Now, given that this government has said the deal would not go through and indeed has paused it until it can and has paused it until the situation has sorted itself out with regard to, you know, whether the US is in agreement with it or not. With what President Trump has said today, I can't see that Diego Garcia, that Chagos as a deal can possibly go through.
And it is a joint military base, but nevertheless, although it's a joint military base with the States, clearly Britain has a huge authority over what can and can't be done from it.
Yeah, well, it is a British base.
Yeah.
It's basically, there's a small skeleton crew from the United Kingdom. They're in Diego Garcia, and they do have small related operations there. But actually, the running of the base, the sovereignty of the base, it's our base. So, the US have to run past the UK any major operations that they might be involved in that have to fly from Diego Garcia.
But in the past, has that been a formality? And therefore, Trump was expecting in this instant exactly the same again. He'd be given the green light and there'd be no problem.
I am, over the years of covering this, I am not aware, not necessarily that we would be... I think we would be told if the US had been blocked. And there is no suggestion. In fact, actually, let's just go to the Telegraph article. It says, quoting Donald Trump direct, there has never been, such
anything between our countries,
an issue in terms of the United Kingdom telling the US that they cannot use the airbase they operate from for these type of actions. So he's clearly absolutely furious.
Yeah, and politically, again, I wonder if the Prime Minister's thinking, I don't care about upsetting Donald Trump, pleases my backbenchers.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. I mean, he is absolutely up against it in terms of a very significant cohort within his own parliamentary party who are not at all happy. Listen, I understand that. There's lots of people that are not happy about getting involved in a conflict in Iran. The consequences of which we really do not know. Nope. We've seen these foreign adventures before. I get that. But what you've had instead of, like Pedro Sanchez, the Spanish Prime Minister, very unequivocally came out and said, this was wrong. We do not support this action by the United States and Israel. He could have come down that way. Instead, he's tried to straddle and, sit on this fence, this very precarious looking at the moment, and he's still there. He's still delivering these speeches, and the government ministers say this morning on breakfast, speaking to Hamish Faulkner and saying, why don't you get off the fence? Either say you support the US or you don't. Either go after the launchers that are sending these missiles into the air to attack British bases, to attack allied countries in the region. If that's what you say the defensive operation is aimed at doing, then you are part of that defensive operation still striking, surely, the facilities that are launching these missiles at you.
And there's a major statement in the Commons this afternoon. We're not sure yet if it's Starmer or the Foreign Secretary, Yvette Cooper, but they are going to be pushed very hard on this. And rightly so.
And they absolutely should be, yeah. I mean, the Conservatives have come out... Lib Dems obviously have not. The Greens obviously have not. They're very opposed to what is happening. But
Reform have been pushing for Britain to go much further,
to be aligned with our key and number one ally. If it wasn't for the United States, especially now with decades of hollowing out our defence forces, we would be in a sorry place. We rely on the US still for our nuclear program. These are, missile capabilities that are, to a large part, dependent on the Trident system that the US has developed. So much of that. The deals that were going in, the AUKUS deals for our attack submarines, that's a joint US initiative in there. So much of what we do with the Americans that we absolutely need them for.
Absolutely. And just very, very briefly, some breaking news from Kuwait. Some US planes have been downed, we think.
Well, this is just the most incredible story. Earlier this morning, we got reports, and hopefully we've got the images that we can show you of this. We got reports that an F-15 fighter jet out of Kuwait had been shot down by friendly fire. Then, about an hour or so later, actually, the news came through to say that actually it wasn't one F-15, but it was several F-15s had been shot out of the sky, and now the US CENTCOM, Central Command, has confirmed. You're look at those remarkable images.
That's extraordinary.
One of the F-15s tumbling to the ground.
Yeah.
We've got other images that actually show one of the pilots having ejected from this aircraft and his parachute coming down to the ground. So CENTCOM have said that all 6 crewmen are safe. So that tells me, anyway, that it was 3 aircraft. There are two crew in each aircraft.
And do we think it was potentially friendly fire that brought
it? Was apparently friendly fire, yeah. And whether that was the US
or the Kuwait
taking down their own aircraft, or Kuwait taking them down, regardless of that.
That's what happens in war.
Well, approximately $100 billion an aircraft for an F-15, according to the internet. So that's
100 million, it's not 100 billion.
100 million, sorry.
That is one expensive aircraft.
More than our entire defence budget. Mark,
many times over.
It is. Mark, right, thanks, Chris. Now, oil prices are soaring as a result of what's happening in the Middle East. Let's talk to Angela Knight, who's the former Chief Executive of Energy UK. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Inevitable consequence, the Strait of Hormuz. We know that a couple of tankers have been struck there.
Yeah.
How long could this last, and what is the ramifications for people watching GB News and listening to GB News, Angela?
Well, there's ramifications for both oil and gas, of course. I mean, you're looking at oil today and the prices have spiked, but at the same time, we bring a lot of gas out of that area, and I'm anticipating that that will be impacted as well. So it's a bit like everything at the moment. It's actually quite difficult to see the future, and a lot of it is going to depend upon how long this conflict lasts and what is the outcome and the conclusion of it. But right now, with no oil apparently coming through the Straits of Hormuz, unless you're on either an Iranian ship or, I believe, a Chinese ship has got through as well, then that starts to restrict the supply of oil. The oil price will go up and there will be an impact back here on the UK. And not least because we have increasingly said that we're not going to be using our own oil supplies from the North Sea and our own gas supplies. And whilst you might say, and quite rightly so, that there is a world price, that is absolutely true, there is also something called energy security. And unfortunately, we've let energy security come a bit too far down the agenda in favour of, I'm going to call it an aggressive pursuit of green policies. So as of now, what it means to all of us is that we don't know what the price is going to go up to. I mean, it did bounce this morning, but then it seemed to steady. So I don't think anybody is just doing panic at the moment, but the price will undoubtedly go up, and that will affect us both in respect of our petrol in the tanks of our cars, but it will also, of course, feed straight through to our energy prices, particularly our electricity and our gas prices, very quickly indeed.
So that's going to impact our inflation numbers pretty rapidly.
Oh, yes, yes. There's probably more that will affect the inflation prices because, you know, some of the other participants alongside Iran, no doubt, will get engaged, and that will start to restrict again on the Suez Canal. The container vessels will then start to go the long way round and so on. You know, this is a very significant, I'm going to call it a war, some people might call it a conflict, I'm not quite sure which it is, but it is very severe. And I very much appreciated the comments that were made by your studio guest earlier about what side is the UK on, because whilst we may be pin dancing on the international legal niceties of defence and attack and those sorts of things, from any sort of external perception, we are involved. And so I think we should get off the fence and help where we can. We've got a lot of nationals in that area. We've got a lot of commitments in that area. We've got economic consequences on this country. And sitting on the fence has never been anything other than a very uncomfortable place to be.
Very interesting.
Angela Knight, thank you so much for joining us this morning. That's Angela Knight, the former Chief Executive of Energy UK. I think such a good point you made about inflation, Andrew.
Yeah.
Gilt prices have jumped today,
of course,
because people are worried about lending to the UK if we can't get inflation under control.
And as we know, Macmillan famously said, what's the most difficult part about government? Events again. This could blow the entire government's economic strategy. Of course, inflation was one of the few things that was coming down, unemployment was going up. This could see inflation go again. And while they'll be able to blame the Iran war, that won't make any difference to people when their shopping bill goes up.
It won't make any difference to the pound in your pocket, will it? Well, some breaking news now to bring you from Scotland. Police have warned the public to avoid part of Edinburgh following reports of a man with a bladed weapon.
Let's talk to GB News Scotland reporter Tony Maguire, who has the latest for us.
Good morning.
Tony,
yes,
good morning. Can you bring us up to date with this breaking news?
West side of Edinburgh, where this morning police has urged local residents to stay indoors after a man was spotted wielding 2 knives around the local high school. Now, outside Wester Hills High School, we know that's around where the incident began this morning, but police have flooded into this local area of Calder, with many residents in the high-rises told to stay indoors. And parents of the local school, that Wester Hills High School, were sent a message just after 9 o'clock this morning. It said the school is in lockdown following an incident in the community this morning. The children are safe and we will update you in 30 minutes. Now, this was about 9 o'clock this morning when police, fire crews and ambulances swarmed this estate. As I said, some of the local residents there, they were actually taking pictures that you can see now outside of the upper floor windows to kind of show the scale of this operation. And of course, the man who is seen to be carrying 2 bladed weapons, there are unconfirmed reports, I repeat, unconfirmed reports that he has stabbed people. There are some reports coming out of the Calders that there are victims, but those have not been confirmed by the local police yet or St John's ambulance services. So at this point just now, all we really know is this is a huge operation, and the local authorities and the local emergency services are all taking every precaution so that members of the public are able to stay safe while they do their investigations. Reports as well of dogs being around in that Calder's estate this morning for up to 2 hours, trying to really get a leg on the next stage of this investigation. But so far, we're still waiting to hear any update from Police Scotland from this ongoing incident in the Calders in Edinburgh.
OK, Tony, that's Tony Maguire, our Scotland reporter, who'll keep us up to date on that story, moving story in
Very
Edinburgh.
concerning.
Yeah, always concerning. Now, up next, Shabana Mahmood, that's the Home Secretary, as scrapping permanent refugee status. Bold and brave?
Well, we'll be going through that and more with Matthew Talbot and William Yarwood. You're watching Britain's Newsroom, only on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back. It's 26 minutes past 11. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom live across the United Kingdom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
And our panel is back, former Labour advisor Matthew Torby and the media campaign manager of the Taxpayers Alliance, William Yard. William, the Home Secretary, I would argue, is one of Labour's most effective performers. Indeed. And I think she's pushing an open door today by announcing settled refugee status, permanent refugee is going.
Yeah, and I think it's a good thing. I think Mahmood actually, since she's become Home Secretary, has proven herself to be a very, very capable operator. Although one thing I think is interesting with Mahmood is I think people have complained about the way she sort of changed track and changed her positions, but now she's been in the Home Department and knows how bad it is. I mean, there's been a sort of change in her eyes and even her language and even the way she talks about things. I mean, the way she talks is actually more hardline than actually the last few Tory Home Secretaries, I might say. One thing that is interesting with this, though, is, these policy programmes might be very, very good. There's a political question here, Andrew. Are they going to get past this by the Labour backbenchers? They couldn't do welfare reform for even £5 billion. How are they going to get something like this past backbenchers who, of course, did not come into politics to do this kind of programme?
That's a very good point. You know the backbenchers better than any of us. What do you think?
This policy, I suppose, will be a battle for the soul of the Labour Party at the moment, or at least the guide to the next general election, because you'll obviously have those on the left and the soft left going, well, the reason for Gorton and Denton was obviously because of policies like this.
Well, she was cited as a cause for the defeat.
I saw that. I thought that was very telling and very
quite a lot of places. I don't know who was briefing it.
That she did point out in one of her interviews, I think it was with The Telegraph, that the polling shows 70% of Green Party supporters back her plans on indefinite leave to remain. So it's potentially more popular than Labour backbenchers believe.
Green Party supporters need to read their own party's manifesto because they're going to let everybody in any time they like. That's the Green Party manifesto.
I would probably, I'd side with Shabana on that as well, because whenever I've got in a taxi or gone somewhere and it's somebody that's come to this country, wasn't born here, driving it or whatever, the one thing you pick up on is that the people that seem to be most annoyed by things like small boat crossings is actually migrants themselves, because it's that fairness argument, again, of they came here properly, they came here with documentation, they've worked hard, they are where they are, and they see this, much like people that are also born here, as people skipping the queue. And hang on a minute, we didn't get all that when we came over. We did things the right way and play by the rules. So why should we all feel punished by this? You'll have those that are backers of Shabana and those that are maybe backers of Keir. Keir is obviously supportive, that's why it's the policy, in saying this is what we've got to do, we've got to take the fight to reform. You'll have others saying, no, this is why the Greens are winning. I think when you look at polling, it's a bit of both. We're hemorrhaging almost like Humpty Dumpty. We're going in all different directions. We're hemorrhaging to the Liberal voters of the Greens, but we're also going... And we need to find a way to straddle both horses, otherwise it's curtains, really, isn't it?
There's not a chance in hell, even though I think she's very effective, that she could ever be a Labour leader, strong contender, because of her hard line on immigration.
The membership would have to change dramatically, either by tons of people leaving and going to places like the Greens, or who knows, some Damascene conversion from members who are currently soft left but go...
A merger with reform.
Well, that may be what it would have to take.
We live in crazy times. I
think she'd actually be likely to get the Liz Kendall 4%, actually, if she managed to make the ballot. And that's the other thing, I don't think she's even got enough members to make the ballot.
She probably knows that.
Yes, but you cause enough noise, you ensure you're in the next cabinet under a future Labour leader, and that way you can still fight your sort of blue Labour cause, which you think is the right way forward.
Of course, the big news of the massive war in Middle East has kind of put the election result on Thursday, Friday on a back burner. But going back to Friday, when the news was breaking about that extraordinary victory for the Greens, I mean, this is going to shake up British politics for some time to come.
Oh, absolutely. Well, one thing I will say, though, is I thought the Greens were going to get it from the outset, really. I mean, I think that, you know, reform, although they did animate their vote, I mean, especially in Denton, and that was basically all just teal/turquoise. But the Greens have ran a very effective ground operation, although, of course, they did engage in pretty sectarian, horrible voting, which they should be ashamed of, quite frankly, and it's a shame on British politics. Although one thing I will say regarding that is, what did we expect? I mean, come on, you know, we've had state-enforced multiculturalism for 20-odd years, we've had mass immigration, which nobody voted for, and we've allowed people to basically balkanise in areas where they don't have to integrate or speak English. Are people surprised that political parties making, you know, use of that? Of course they are. I mean, of course they're going to do so. So there's, you know, we can pearl clutch about it, but, you know, there's actually, you know, no nice answers to this apart from, you know, possibly, you know, removing, you know, postal voting and family voting, or possibly deportations, or possibly even...
Well, family voting's illegal already.
Well, indeed, well, you know, tell that to the people in Gorton and Denton.
I mean, postal vote reform would make a big difference, and potentially banning campaigning in any other language than English. They would not change the makeup of the demography, but they would give voting more integrity.
But it was their first by-election in the North, the first ever by-election... Sorry, their first MP in the North, their first ever by-election victory. It was a stunning result.
Stunning result. But also it proves something that actually I think the Greens can do this in a lot of other areas around the country. And in some areas, as you saw in Gorton and Denton, it's going to be Greens versus Reform, no matter what the Tories and Labour might think.
They were second in 39 Labour seats in the last election. That's a lot.
And they're winnable as well for the Greens. They're going to be thinking, if we've got the momentum behind us, they're going to be winnable. Fun times ahead,
becoming more and more European.
Are you going to join the Greens, Matthew? No. You've given up on Labour.
It's all right, they don't support Green policies anymore.
She didn't even talk about climate change.
But you don't have to have a heat pump or anything.
In her acceptance speech, she didn't even mention climate change.
But on that, though, as with now a Green Party spokesperson hat on apparently, would it make more sense to have a broader economic message when people are only so bothered about green stuff? I think it's sensible for them to talk about other aspects of it. Same as reform and immigration. You've got to broaden your horizon.
You do.
Thank you both very much for your contribution this morning. We'll be back soon, but first of all, we've got your 60-second news update with Sophia Hill.
Miriam, thank you. Very good morning. The headlines just after 11:30. President Donald Trump has told The Telegraph that he is very disappointed in Sir Keir Starmer for blocking him from using Diego Garcia to carry out strikes on Iran. That's as RAF Akrotiri in Cyprus was struck by a drone just hours after the Prime Minister confirmed the UK would allow the United States to use British bases for strikes against Iranian missile sites. The incident comes amid escalating regional tensions as the government prepares for contingency plans for the possible evacuation of more than 100,000 Brits from the Middle East. Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood has told GBNews that she would personally live next to a migrant camp if it was part of the solution. She insisted that there is no one silver bullet to fix what she calls a broken system, as today refugee status will become temporary, with all adult asylum claims reviewed every 30 months. Police are urging the public to avoid part of Edinburgh following reports of a man with a bladed weapon. Armed officers were called to the Calder area shortly before 9 a.m, with witnesses claiming several people may have been injured. The Metropolitan Police is missing nearly half of its officers' DNA from its elimination database, along with more than a fifth of fingerprints. These records are used to rule out contamination at crime scenes, but gaps in the system could also hamper efforts to identify wrongdoings within the force. And rail fares across England have been frozen for the first time in 3 decades. From this week, regulated fares, including season tickets and peak returns, will not rise, affecting more than 1 billion journeys a year. Those are the headlines for now. More on those stories at the top of the hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom.
They're here. Tom and Nana, what's coming up? I wonder what you're talking about.
I am astonished
that the Prime Minister initially refused to back Donald Trump. And then within 72 hours, as he so often does, there was a sort of mealy-mouthed, partial U-turn. I think this has become the absolute lodestar of this Prime Minister. Make one decision that annoys one group of people, and then wait a period of time to half U-turn upon it and annoy the other group of people. This happened with the farmers. This happened with winter fuel allowance. All of these times, one position is taken.
He doesn't believe in anything, Tom.
And then immediately, the diametrically opposed position. But still, Donald Trump is annoyed with him for the first position. Then everyone else is annoyed with him for the second. I mean, the man is a weather vane.
But his reasoning was so bad as well. He said international law. But international law does not permit mass murder of your own people. So that would be the first thing I'd be looking at as to whether I'd get involved. So his reasoning for not getting involved was just absolutely ridiculous. And it's a total embarrassment, I will say.
And the way he announced it as well, it was so unconvincing, wasn't it? That statement to the cameras, I just thought, where's your passion, Prime Minister?
So strange. You've got we've just seen a by-election on last Thursday that saw a party that's led, whatever you think of him, by quite a charismatic figure who's burst onto the national stage. And I was just thinking, look at the sort of charisma that you've got in politics, in the top of the parties that are surging in the polls. And then look at the guy that's leading the Labour Party and indeed the country. I mean, this is a second-rate politician.
I mean, he looked to me, and not to be insulting in any way, shape or form, but it's kind of like a Thunderbirds puppet, just not hardly moving. The only thing you couldn't see with the strings.
I saw an interesting comment today that was, this is why lawyers rarely become CEOs. They don't make the tough, hard decisions. They do the equivocal advice.
Shabana Mahmood was a lawyer, Robert Jenrick was a lawyer. Both of them are making waves.
He's also an auctioneer.
Well, that maybe explains more. None of whom are here to defend themselves. So better leave it there, but that's coming up at midday with Tom and Nana.
Now, still ahead, police have warned the public to avoid parts of Edinburgh following reports of a man with a bladed weapon. We're going to have the latest on that.
And up next, we will have the latest from the Middle East, as well as Brits are stranded in the war zone. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Hello, yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Signs of spring continuing this week, some sunshine in places today, but the UK is kind of broken up into 4 different areas. We've got a weather front kind of straddling the UK, another one coming into the northwest with brisk winds and a few showers across the west of Northern Ireland and western Scotland. Then we have a sunnier zone. And then that first weather front providing thick cloud and some rain on and off across northwest England, parts of Wales and southwest England too. And then a final sunnier section across much of eastern England. That's where the warmth really is. Temperatures up to 15, maybe even 16 Celsius. It's pretty mild wherever you are, though, even under this cloudy zone. Temperatures getting up into the teens in a few locations. Feels a bit cooler with the brisk winds and a few showers coming into Northern Ireland and turning quite wet as we head into the evening across northwestern parts of Scotland. But to the east, staying generally dry and clear. Still quite gusty across the north coast of Northern Ireland with a few showers coming in here as well. Turning drier across northwest England as that first zone, that first weather front trickles its way down towards the Midlands, but fizzling out as it does so. So the rain turning lighter and patchier. Across East Anglia in the southeast will generally keep the clear skies through the evening, and overnight that could allow 1 or 2 fog patches to form, particularly across parts of East Anglia. Temperatures dropping behind that weather front with clear skies across Scotland and particularly Northern Ireland. We'll see a touch of frost likely here, rural spots dipping down to 0 or a degree or so below. Further south, with the cloudier skies, temperatures likely to hold up a little bit. But it will be a cloudier day then tomorrow across East Anglia and the southeast parts of the Midlands, even a little bit of light rain and drizzle, but mostly early on. That should tend to fizzle out and the cloud will break up to reveal some brighter spells. Certainly a fine day further north with many places looking dry with good spells of sunshine. Temperatures 9 or 10 in the north, 13 or 14 further south.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up? About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 20 minutes to 12. You're watching Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Miriam.
Well, a scoop of the Telegraph. Donald Trump has told that newspaper, he'd done an interview with their man in America, that he's very disappointed in Sir Keir Starmer for initially blocking him from using Diego Garcia. That's the the military base in the Chagos Islands. I think that is the end of this Chagos deal now.
Well, it must be.
We're trying to not give back to Mauritius, because they never owned it, but to give Mauritius the island at a cost of, is it £35 billion
Something like
over
that,
100
over 100 years?
It's an absolute insanity in the first place.
Absolutely. It's quite difficult to iron out what's happened over the Chagos deal, and there certainly seems to be some evidence that the US initially did support it because they thought that we had to do a deal to get away from this international court judgment to
which
make
is
sure
advisory.
Exactly, but to make sure that it could continue uninterrupted. But Donald Trump is clearly now so angry with the British approach that he was going to pull the deal from a fit of pique, if nothing else.
It's pretty unusual for an American president to talk to a British newspaper like the Telegraph and say, I'm very disappointed with the Prime Minister. His initial response, and then, of course, yesterday the Prime Minister changes his mind a bit, so we're now allowing Fairford in Gloucestershire and the Chagos Islands base to be used for American planes to fly from there to bomb jets at military storage plants where they keep missiles and
the
drones
launchers.
And the launches.
And I absolutely don't think we should roll over and do everything America said. Absolutely not. We've done that far too much. But when it comes to military cooperation, we are completely reliant on them. It's frankly stupid not to just do everything they ask of us, because if they were to pull cooperation with us, we would have absolutely nothing at all when it came to military capability.
Let's talk now to Oren Marmostan, who is the spokesperson for Israel's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Good morning to you. Very nice to talk to you again. Can I ask you, you may not have caught up with the fact the President of the United States has criticised Sir Keir Starmer over the initial reluctance to allow America to use Diego Garcia for military strikes. He said that he was very disappointed with the initial British response. Do you share that disappointment?
What I do share is the sentiment of being grateful to President Trump and the leadership that President Trump has been showing throughout this operation. He had the courage, he had the leadership to lead the way, to deal with a threat that is not only a threat to Israel, to the Middle East, of course to the Iranian people themselves, but to the entire world. And I think I've just seen a report before stepping into the joining you in this interview. I've seen a report about another attack against British bases in Cyprus. So, you know, the Iranian regime has been massacring their own civilians. Thousands. Unfortunately, now they are attacking our civilians. Yesterday I was in the city of Bet Shemesh. I've seen horrible pictures of civilian neighborhood that was targeted by the Iranian regime ballistic missiles. And they're not only going after our civilians, they are attacking Arab countries. 8 different countries in the Middle East were attacked. And now it's getting to you guys, to Europe.
And
their ballistic missiles, sorry, you were saying.
So apologies for interrupting you. How much danger are Israeli civilians in? Because we know that Israel famously has extraordinarily capable air defences, but nevertheless we know at least one major Iranian rocket has made it through. Are you worried about the safety of civilians?
We are cautious, we're resilient, but yes, there are casualties. And you said it right, yesterday was a tragic day. 9 civilians were killed, and we had another civilian. This is a Philippine worker that was murdered by an Iranian ballistic missile in Tel Aviv. So yes, there are casualties, but nevertheless, we are determined to finish the job, because you can't leave this threat intact. You can't allow this menace to the entire global stability and global peace not to be. You cannot not to address it. You need to address this challenge.
And what does finish the job mean? Does that mean regime change and destroy completely Iran's nuclear facilities? Is it both or either or?
So our objective is very clear: to remove this threat. And we're doing whatever is needed to carry out the mission, the job. And yes, at the end of the day, we will create conditions that will enable the people of Iran to liberate themselves. That's their own decision. And at the end of the day, the condition will be there for them to free themselves.
Oren, thank you so much for joining us this morning, and we do wish you all the best and, of course, safety for you, your family and everybody else in Israel at this time. That's Oren Marmerstein from the Israeli Foreign Ministry.
A diplomat by virtue. He did not say whether he was disappointed, but he highlighted Starmer's position with the leadership of Trump.
Absolutely. Well, he was the deputy ambassador to the UK. That was his last facing, so indeed he is a diplomat.
Yeah. I interviewed the last one ambassador, and I know what she'd have said about Starmer.
Zippy Hotovle, yes. Yeah.
She did not pull her punches when I interviewed for the Mail, my word. She really was tough.
She definitely has energy.
Now, still ahead, the government is working hard to evacuate up to 100,000 Brits from the Middle East. We'll have the latest travel advice next.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Spells of rain around the Canary Islands, also southern parts of Spain, but elsewhere across Europe, plenty of dry, fine weather and some sunshine to go alongside that too. Now, some brisk northerly winds affecting the Canary Islands, parts of Madeira, also southern parts of Spain, as well as some rain. This could be heavy at times, possibly even bringing in some thunderstorms. But elsewhere across Europe and parts of the Mediterranean, lots of dry, fine weather and plenty of sunshine too. This should continue into next week away from Barcelona, where we are expecting some showers.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, this is Jubes & Co with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here. GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection. Tune in to GB News, anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline.
Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
I'm going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is...
You're
the failure is...
deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. Now, almost 100,000 Britons are trapped in the Middle East and have registered with the Foreign Office asking to be evacuated as soon as possible.
Let's talk to GB News national reporter Jack Carlson. He's at Heathrow Airport with all the latest. Jack.
Yeah, thank you. Well, as you can imagine, mass disruption here, not only here at London Heathrow, but across other London airports across the United Kingdom as well, because of major airlines cancelling flights to and from parts of the Middle East. We know that Emirates have confirmed that they have temporarily suspended all operations to and from Dubai up until 3 o'clock UAE time on Tuesday the 3rd of March, at 2 o'clock UAE time tomorrow for the Etihad Airways as well. And now it's spreading out of parts of that region, given the current situation that we're hearing about in Cyprus, that EasyJet has also cancelled all of its flights connecting Cyprus and the United Kingdom until Thursday. We do believe that a passenger air terminal in Cyprus was evacuated today because of a suspect object that was picked up on the radar, and as you were rightly saying, 100,000 people have signed up to a presence list in parts of the Gulf. More than 100,000 people, that is the operational capacity that the Foreign Office are working to at the moment, and they're the people they've got to work out how they can get out of the region safely.
Very much for that report. And of course, if is anybody stranded in the Middle East watching this programme, go on the Foreign Office's website for the latest advice. That's it from Britain's Newsroom.
We'll be back tomorrow, but up next, it's Tom and Nana. We'll see you tomorrow.
What on earth is our Prime Minister doing? He's pursuing one policy one day and the other the next. What allies are supporting him? Why are we so stranded? We'll be exploring all of those questions.
Also bringing you stories closer to home. In Edinburgh, there has been a knife man running around stabbing people. We will bring you the details of all of that as and when it happens. But first, let's get an update with your weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head into a new week, we have high pressure building. We'll see a mix of cloud and also some sunshine, but where we do see any sunny spells, it's certainly going to be feeling a bit more like spring. Now for today, unfortunately, there is still some rain in the forecast. Quite a wet day on offer across parts of Scotland, northwest England, also parts of Wales and eventually southwest England. But to the south of any of this rain, lots of clear skies, so actually lots of sunshine around and lots of dry weather too. Some brighter spells too across northwest Scotland and Northern Ireland, though it's likely we'll start to see some showers into the afternoon. But as I say, where we do see any sunshine, some quite mild temperatures for the time of year, highs reaching around 15 degrees Celsius, so feeling a bit more like spring, particularly if you compare it to the weather we had yesterday. Now there will still be some cloud lingering on through this evening. This still thick enough to produce some light outbreaks of rain and drizzle, particularly across any hills of Wales or northern areas of England. Just a few showers starting to push into the west of Northern Ireland, also northwest Scotland. But otherwise, Scotland should see plenty of clear skies as we progress through into this evening. Any showers largely easing away. This is fairly similar across Northern Ireland too. And with those clear skies, that means temperatures will soon dip away here, and it's likely we'll see quite a patchy frost across Scotland and Northern Ireland. But anywhere to the south of this, we've still got plenty of cloudy skies, so that's going to hold up temperatures a little bit more. So more towards the mid-single figures across much of England and Wales, but across Scotland, Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, a much chillier start as we head our way into Tuesday. Now, through Tuesday, it's really when we start to see that high pressure building. So any cloud largely fizzling away. It might just linger for a time across southeast England, parts of the south as well. And this at times will produce some drizzle. But for most of the country, there'll be lots of dry weather around and lots of sunshine. Still that little bit cooler across northern areas, but where the cloud breaks up in the south, still feeling pleasant for the time of year. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
A camper van and cash could be yours in our very latest Great British Giveaway. You could be driving away in this brand new Benavan 122. This 2026 model, worth over £67,000, comes with all of the mod cons you'd expect. And that's not all, as you'll also get an incredible £25,000 in tax-free cash to boost your bank account this year. For a chance to win a camper van and cash, text prize to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry starts at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB20 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of May. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air